All right, let's compare swatches for the Natasha Denona Retro Palette and the Charlotte Tilbury Pink Love Palette. So first, this shade, the very first shade in the Charlotte Tilbury palette, it's a satin, but in color it's closest to this lightest shade here. So let's try this out. Very light on my skin, you can barely see anything. From Charlotte Tilbury, it's a very similar color, but it's a different finish. Matte satin. The diamond dimension, this is pretty much all micro glitter. It's a very light shade, just like a light pink. Glitz is similar but less reflective and a lighter, cooler pink. My dog is protesting me doing this instead of playing with her at the moment, and so she is chewing the bone as loud as she can right next to the computer. All right, let's look at the psychedelic shade. The psychedelic shade is quite close to the Diamond Dimension by Charlotte Tilbury. The shades are just slightly different, but you can get a very similar effect with the two of them. Let's look at both over a matte. The Diamond Dimension is a little bit deeper, but you get a very similar effect between the two. Let's compare this matte. So this is a bright, cool toned matte. Bright, cool toned pink. There's nothing exactly like it in the Natasha Denona Retro Palette. I really think the closest color is this, but it's a different finish. So if we really build up that shade, Glitz is more purple, whereas this shade is just pure matte in the Charlotte Tilbury, so it's not the same and they have different finishes. So let's get into this matte. Oh my goodness, it's so pigmented. It is so pigmented. I should have known because I've swatched this before, but I am always surprised by that. I need to clean off my brush now. And it's somewhere in between this shade and this shade in Natasha Denona. So Natasha Denona, while it is pigmented, it's not quite as in-your-face pigmented as the Charlotte Tilbury one is. Those are quite similar. Let's go into this matte in Charlotte Tilbury. I think it's closest to this shade here. I love this shade. They're not identical, but they are very close. The Natasha Denona is a tiny bit deeper, whereas the Charlotte Tilbury is slightly pinker, but they are very close. Let me go into this shade here. It's a Crystal Pop. I'll tap it out and then I'll build it up a little bit on the side. So this, I think the closest is going to be the psychedelic shade. So this shade is deeper than psychedelic. They're actually not that similar in person. It's weird because it has more reflect, but it just has a very different, it looks different in person. You might be able to see, this might be a little bit more, I almost want to say metallic, whereas you can see more of the micro glitter. Here, let me build this one up in the middle instead. The formulas are different. Let's go for this matte. Again, very pigmented. Clean the brush. So I actually think it's closest to this color, but we'll see because it might. Oh, why did I do that with my finger? Oh no, that one is too deep. No, that one's too purple. I didn't think it was going to be the same in the pan, but actually this color in the Charlotte Tilbury palette is closest to this color in Natasha Denona. It doesn't look like that would be the case in the pan, but that is the case in the swatches when you swatch with the brush. The Natasha Denona is a little deeper, a little bit more berry, but both gorgeous. This is a metallic shade. It's a smooth metallic satin. It is lovely. I think it's going to be the closest to this shade. Okay, there's a big difference there. The Charlotte Tilbury shade is a lot cooler, a lot more pink, whereas the Natasha Denona shade is a lot peachier. Even though both I would say are metallic, the Charlotte Tilbury one is a lot more reflective than the Natasha Denona one. Charlotte Tilbury, Natasha Denona. You know, and yet, even though I would say both are metallic, I cannot see individual micro glitters in this when I look at it, but it's just a lot more reflective than this formula. All right, let's do the last one here. So I have it built up and then just kind of tapped on. There's no shade in Natasha Denona that gets us that effect, or that color and that effect. Well, let's see. If I take this matte and I put this over it and then psychedelic over that, nope. The formulas are just different. We're getting a lot more shine out of some of the Charlotte Tilbury formulas, but I mean, a lot of the Natasha Denona formulas are absolutely gorgeous. There's no doubt. It's just, they're different. They're different. Okay, so what do we have? This shade does not have a Natasha Denona dupe in the Retro Palette. It does in color, but not in finish. This one, the Diamond Dimension, I would say it has a fairly good dupe in Psychedelic in the Retro Palette. This matte does not have a dupe in finish, but it's fairly similar to this color. Both of these mattes have pretty good dupes in the Natasha Denona. This matte and this matte. When we get into this crystal pop, there is not a good dupe in the Retro Palette. This matte is actually quite similar to that one. It's not a dupe, but it's still fairly similar. You would be able to get a very similar look. These two do not have dupes in Natasha Denona. This one especially is different. I hope this helps you determine whether you want to shop for anything, if you want to shop for it, or if this pink palette is right for you.